It didn't feel wrong, not in the beginning. Actually, it felt like the safest place I had ever been in. The way he touched me, it wasn't just physical, it felt intentional, focused, like he knew exactly what I needed, without me saying anything. And that's what made it so hard to question. Because when something feels that real, you don't stop to analyze it. You just fall. And I did, completely. There was an intensity in him, something I had never experienced before. It wasn't just attraction, it felt like I was being seen, chosen, desired, in a way that made everything else disappear. And for a while, I believed that meant something, that it was real, that it was deeper than anything I had before. But looking back now, that was the first illusion. Because it wasn't connection, it was attention, and I didn't know the difference yet. At the beginning, he was fully present. Every moment felt focused on me. Every reaction I had felt important to him. He wanted to know what I liked, what I felt, what affected me, and I thought, this is what intimacy is supposed to feel like. But now I see it differently. He wasn't trying to understand me, he was studying me. Because the more he knew, the more control he had. And I didn't see that. I thought I was getting closer to him, but I was actually becoming predictable. And slowly, things started to change. Not in a way I could explain, just small shifts, less presence, less intensity, less of that feeling that everything was about us. At first, I ignored it. I told myself he was tired, busy, distracted. Because when something feels that good, you don't want to believe it can change. So I adjusted. Without even realizing, I became more careful, more aware, more quiet. I stopped saying certain things, stopped asking certain questions because every time I did, something felt off, not obvious, but enough to feel. And that's when it started, that quiet shift where I stopped reacting to him and started reacting to myself. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe I should just relax. And without noticing, I started needing less, or at least pretending to, because every time I reached for connection, he pulled away. And every time I pulled back, he came closer again. Just enough to remind me of how it felt in the beginning. And that kept me there, because I wasn't chasing him. I was chasing that feeling, that version of him that I thought was real, but wasn't. And the hardest part, sometimes he came back. And that's the part no one really talks about. Because when he came back, it wasn't just relief, it was confusion, deep confusion. Because the same person who made me feel invisible suddenly knew exactly how to make me feel wanted again. And my mind couldn't process that because it didn't make sense. How could someone go from cold to warm like nothing ever happened? How could he disappear emotionally and then come back like he never left? And the more I tried to understand it, the more I got stuck, because I kept looking for logic in something that wasn't logical. I thought, maybe he's changing. Maybe he just needs time. Maybe this is just how he is. But deep down, there was a part of me that knew, a quiet voice that I kept ignoring, because listening to it would mean accepting something I wasn't ready to face. That this wasn't inconsistency, it was strategy. Not conscious maybe, but still a pattern. Because every time I started pulling away, he came closer. And every time I leaned in again, he created distance. And that back and forth did something to me. It rewired how I felt because I stopped feeling safe in stability and I started feeling attached to unpredictability. That's the part that scares me now. Not what he did, but how I adapted to it. How I started feeling more connected when things were uncertain. How calm started to feel empty and intensity started to feel real. Even when it was hurting me and I didn't notice it happening because it was slow, subtle, almost invisible. But over time, I wasn't reacting to him anymore. I was reacting to the pattern, waiting for the highs, enduring the lows, just to feel that moment again when everything felt right. And that creates something dangerous because you stop asking if it's healthy and start asking how to get it back. And that question keeps you stuck because now you're not in the relationship. You're in the cycle. And cycles don't need logic. They just need repetition. And repetition creates attachment, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. And that's why it was so hard to leave. Not because I didn't see the problem, but because part of me was still waiting for the feeling. That beginning, that version of him, that only showed up when I was already slipping away. And once I understood that, everything shifted. Because I realized I wasn't holding on to him. I was holding on to a moment, a version, an illusion, and illusions don't change, they just repeat. Fully present, attentive, exactly how he was before. And for a moment, I believed it again. I thought, maybe this time it's different, but it never lasted. Because it wasn't real change, it was control. And I couldn't see it yet. I just felt confused because something didn't match. Even in the best moments, something was missing. A depth that never fully happened. A connection that never stayed. And I kept trying to reach it, trying to understand it, trying to fix it. But the more I tried, the further it felt. Until one day, I stopped trusting myself. I questioned everything. Not him, me. Why does this feel off? Why can't I just enjoy this? What's wrong with me? And that's the moment. Everything changes. Because now, you're not seeing clearly anymore. You're adapting, adjusting, trying to fit into something that is slowly breaking you. And that's when I started disappearing. Not all at once, slowly, quietly, in pieces. Until one day, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. And then something shifted. Not dramatic, not loud, just different. I stopped trying, stopped explaining, stopped chasing, and I just watched. And for the first time, I saw it. The pattern, clear. The closeness wasn't connection. The distance wasn't random. The intensity wasn't love. It was control. And once I saw that, everything changed. Because now, it wasn't confusing anymore. It was predictable. And that's when it hit me. This was never about me. Not my effort, not my love, not my worth. It was about something in him that needed control. Control of how close we felt. Control of when he pulled away. Control of how much I questioned and how much I stayed. And the moment I stopped reacting, he felt it. And suddenly, he was everything again. Soft, present, attentive, everything I had been waiting for. And for a second, I almost went back. But something inside me didn't move. Because now I could see it. This wasn't connection. It was adjustment. And that changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, you can't go back to the illusion. You stop chasing the moments. You stop believing the intensity. You stop waiting for something. that was never real. And then came the hardest part, letting go not just of him, but of the version of me that stayed. The one that believed, the one that hoped, the one that kept trying. Because now there was silence. No chaos, no confusion, no emotional highs and lows, just space. And that space felt uncomfortable because I was used to intensity. But inside that silence, something came back. Me, slowly. I started thinking clearly again, feeling honestly again, trusting myself again. And then came the question, if I can see all of this now, why did I stay? And that question changed everything. Because now, it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, my patterns, my awareness, my truth. And once I reached that point, I didn't need closure. I didn't need answers. I didn't need him to finally understand me. Because I understood. It was never about love. It was never about connection. It was never about being enough. It was about control. And the moment I stopped chasing, he didn't lose me. He lost control. And that is the one thing he doesn't know how to handle. So he'll repeat same patterns, different person, again and again and again, trying to recreate something that only works when the other person can't see it. But I can now. And once you see it, you don't just leave the relationship, you leave the illusion. And that is where my life actually began.